It begins not with a roar, but with a question whispered across the frozen airfields of the Soviet Union: how do we fight the enemy we cannot catch? The year was 1964. Across the Atlantic, the United States had already introduced the F-4 Phantom II, a powerful, twin-engine multi-role jet that could strike from afar and outmaneuver most adversaries. The Soviet Air Force, once confident in its fleet of nimble MiG-21s, suddenly faced a harsh reality: its light fighters were too limited for modern warfare. The Americans had range, radar, payload, and speed. The Soviets had agility, but in the Cold War, agility alone was no longer enough. From this urgency was born a radical idea: to create a fighter that could adapt. A machine that could fly like a MiG-21 when needed, but also chase down high-speed intruders when required. This bold concept gave rise to the MiG-23, a jet that would embody Soviet ingenuity and defiance, a swing-wing fighter designed not only to survive, but to redefine air combat itself. Its mission was clear: surpass the West's most advanced jets, and prove that Soviet design could rival American innovation in both science and speed. Behind the creation of the MiG-23 was a story of pressure, ambition, and secrecy. The Mikoyan-Gurevich Design Bureau, led by the brilliant Artem Mikoyan and a team of young engineers, was tasked with building an entirely new kind of aircraft, one that could operate from rough Soviet runways, strike targets beyond visual range, and still hold its own in a dogfight. Their solution was revolutionary: variable geometry wings, capable of sweeping backward for supersonic flight and extending outward for slower, more controlled maneuvers. It was an audacious mechanical gamble, one that required immense precision and mathematical genius. The Soviets studied American projects like the F-111 Aardvark and learned from captured German wartime research, but they had to innovate within strict limitations. The MiG-23 would use a single Tumansky R-29 turbojet, generating over 28,000 pounds of thrust, propelling the aircraft past Mach 2.3. It was armed with radar-guided missiles and a 23mm GSH-23 cannon, and fitted with the powerful SAP-23 radar that could detect targets over 50 kilometers away. Yet for all its sophistication, the MiG-23 remained rugged, built to operate from unprepared fields, serviced quickly, and mass-produced at scale. It was not a machine of luxury, but a tool of survival. For Soviet engineers, the MiG-23 wasn't just a fighter, it was a statement: the East could match the West, wing for wing, speed for speed. When the MiG-23 first took to the skies in 1967, test pilots described it as both thrilling and terrifying. The variable sweep wing system allowed for an unprecedented range of flight behavior. At low sweep, it could take off from short runways; at full sweep, it could chase down supersonic bombers with stunning speed. But this innovation came with a price. The aircraft was unforgiving to those who didn't respect its temperament. Pilots had to constantly adjust trim, manage airflow, and anticipate inertia that shifted with every wing angle. Some early flights ended in disaster. The swing-wing design caused structural strain, and the R-29 engine, though powerful, was temperamental. Yet, despite the challenges, the MiG-23 evolved rapidly through multiple versions. Each redesign sharpened its claws, refined its avionics, and improved handling. By the time the MiG-23 MLD entered service, it had matured into a fast, hard-hitting, and highly versatile weapon. In the vast expanse of Soviet doctrine, where every pilot was expected to fight in all conditions, from freezing tundras to desert heat, the MiG-23 was the perfect warrior: adaptable, fierce, and unpredictable. The MiG-23's true test came not in secret trials, but in the skies of real wars, from the Middle East to Africa. In the 1973 Yom Kippur War, the jet appeared in Syrian and Egyptian colors, clashing with Israeli F-4 Phantoms and later F-15 Eagles. For Western pilots, it was a mystery, a fighter that could vanish from radar, strike from afar, and escape before a counterattack. But the reality was complex. Inexperienced pilots often struggled with its advanced systems, and maintenance errors caused tragic losses. In the hands of elite aviators, however, the MiG-23 was deadly. Its blistering acceleration allowed it to dictate the terms of engagement, darting in for a missile attack before retreating to safety. Later, during the Soviet-Afghan War, it became both a fighter and a strike platform, delivering precision attacks against guerrilla positions in the mountains. In Angola, Cuba, Iraq, and Libya, it became a symbol of Soviet reach, a machine that represented not just power, but influence. Every dogfight, every confrontation with NATO or US-backed jets became part of its growing legend. Even when the MiG-23 was defeated, it forced Western analysts to rethink their assumptions. It was not a perfect aircraft, but it was one that changed the rules of engagement forever. Globally, the MiG-23 had a profound impact on military aviation. Over 5,000 units were built, more than most Western fighters of its time, and it became one of the most exported aircraft in history. Nations across Asia, Africa, and Europe flew it, modifying it for their own doctrines. The MiG-23MF served as a reliable interceptor, while the MiG-27, a derivative ground attack variant, brought Soviet firepower to battlefields around the world. It reshaped how air forces thought about flexibility. The concept of a variable geometry fighter inspired Western programs like the F-14 Tomcat and Panavia Tornado, yet the MiG-23 achieved similar goals with half the complexity and cost. This was the Soviet genius, making innovation accessible, scalable, and brutally efficient. But as technology advanced, the MiG-23 began to show its age. Newer aircraft like the MiG-29 and Su-27 introduced digital fly-by-wire systems, greater stability, and beyond visual range combat capabilities. Still, the MiG-23 remained relevant for decades. Even into the 21st century, a handful of nations continue to operate it, a living fossil of the Cold War that refuses to fade quietly into history. Yet what truly made the MiG-23 remarkable were the people behind it, and those who flew it. Soviet engineers labored in near silence, often under immense political pressure. They were driven by pride as much as fear. Every failed test flight risked not only careers but reputations, and sometimes lives. The pilots, meanwhile, were men who danced on the edge of physics. They described the MiG-23 as a wild stallion, powerful and temperamental, demanding constant attention. In training, some pilots died learning to tame its quirks. Others emerged from battle convinced that it was the finest aircraft they had ever flown. Their courage and adaptability defined the jet's legacy as much as its design. And beyond the cockpit, political leaders viewed it as an instrument of ideology, proof that the Soviet system could produce miracles of engineering to rival anything the capitalist West could imagine. For them, the MiG-23 was not merely a jet, it was a message to the world: we are equals in the sky. In the end, the MiG-23's legacy transcends its statistics and specifications. It was a bridge between eras, the last of the analog Soviet fighters before the digital age of aviation began. It taught the world that flexibility could be engineered, that one aircraft could adapt to multiple missions, and that technology could transform strategy itself. Its variable wings embodied a philosophy, that survival in combat, much like survival in the Cold War, depended on the ability to change. Though retired from most air forces today, the MiG-23's influence lives on in aircraft that value versatility and adaptability over brute speed alone. It paved the way for the doctrine of multi-role combat, a standard that defines fighter design to this day. And as the sun sets on its metallic wings, the question remains: was the MiG-23 a misunderstood marvel or a flawed masterpiece? Perhaps it was both. Perhaps its true greatness lies not in perfection, but in its audacity to try. And so, as the last echoes of its afterburners fade across the pages of history, we are left to wonder, in an age of stealth and artificial intelligence, could any modern aircraft ever carry the same daring spirit that the MiG-23 once did? Or have we lost something in our pursuit of precision, that wild, human courage to push the limits of what's possible in the endless sky? Tell us, viewers, does the legacy of the MiG-23 still soar in today's world, or has the age of bold engineering truly come to an end?